My husband, George, got my friend pregnant.
Oh, come on, what's with your face? It's your fault that you're infertile. Do you know? If you want alimony, I 11 give it to. Don't come after me because you get, okay? Because that would be really annoying.
Sorry about that. Sorry I took George away from you. Anyway, we're going to be happy from now on. Make sure to congratulate us.
My friend, Rachel, patted her belly. Looking at her big belly, I put my chin. I thought to myself, something's not right. And after thinking for a while, I said, see, that's how it is.
Wow, what is up with you all of a pseudo?
I smiled to myself, seeing the true nature of her actions. My name is Diana. I live with my husband, George, in an apartment. I met George at my previous workplace. We were in different departments and the company at different times, but when we happened to sit next to the company's year-end party, George had a gentle personality and was able to interact with everyone regardless of their department. I liked that about him, and he liked so we began to go out. After dating for 2 years, we had a few fights, but now we've been married for 3 years, and currently we have no children. It's not because we decided not to children. Both George and I have great kids. We have talked about it throughout our relationship, and both George and I are very excited to start a family. I quit my job to become a housewife, unfortunately. We have never been, have a child. I was well aware that having a child something that can be achieved, only desire to have one. But when I couldn't get pregnant, no matter how hard I tried, I felt my spirit was slowly being sapped away. On top of that, Emily, who is my mother-in-law, lives nearby, visited me unannounced every day and kept pressuring me to have children. I thought she was a good mother-in-law when we first got married because she carried many things. But she became more aggressive about me being pregnant as time went on. She was not only pressuring me to be pregnant, but she also took my permission, complained about the cooked, and was always picking on me. The other day, she took all my jewelry and clothes, claiming that she would clean them up.
Emily, those are my clothes. I'm still using them, so please don them without my permission.
What are you even saying? You don't even fulfill your duties. So aren't you ashamed of yourself? All these luxurious things? I will use these accessories for you, thankful about that. I really feel sorry for George. I really feel sorry for him, for being tricked into the relationship by a woman. You can't get pregnant, so you're not a wife. Just break up with George and get your life back on track.
No matter what I said, Emily would listen to me. George, who was also there, did not Emily, but rather seemed to agree with. It's not like I just sat idly by with my fingers crossed when they pressured me to have an abortion. I went to the organ several times. After various tests, nothing was found wrong with my body. So I thought that there might be something wrong with George's side, and I suggested that he undergo some tests. But he didn't want to. On the contrary, he had completely inherited his mother's wisdom in dealing with fertility problems on the woman's side. But the situation never improved. One day, after all this had happened, he came home from work with an unusual look on his face and asked me to sit down.
Diana, I've got to tell you something. Can you please listen to what I have?
What? Why are you being like this, Olive? I was going to make dinner, so does to be now?
George stopped me as I was heading kitchen and sat me down on the sofa living room. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Then, after about 10 seconds of silence, he opened his mouth.
Actually, she's pregnant, so please break up with me. I'm sure you'd understand, Diana. I've always wanted a child, so like Mom said, I don't want to, you can't get pregnant.
I didn't understand what was being. All I could say was, what did you just say? Other words came out. I was so stunned, and George began what he had said.
So, what's up? I will have a baby with someone else, you wouldn't get pregnant. Well, I feel bad that I made a baby with someone else even when we haven't had a divorce yet. But that's just the way it is, so you alimony. But you have to know that it's all your fault, Diana. If only you had gotten pregnant, this wouldn't have ever happened.
I couldn't understand at all about situation, no matter how many times told. Is he really an adult? Where in the world has the gentle G I fell in love with go? While holding my head due to the pain I had from listening to him, I asked a question that was bothering me.
WU, who is the other Giron? How long have you had that kind of relationship?
It's Rachel. You remember, she's your ex-coworker. When I told her you were having trouble getting pregnant, she suggested that she could help.
George answered the question, easily nonchalant look on his face. Rachel and I had joined the company same time, and we were reasonably C. She had even come to the wedding, George. And it was Rachel who gave when I was wondering if I should go George in the first place. The worst kind of betrayal left me in darkness.
The organ had checked her the other day. They said that the baby was a boy. Oh, I'm so excited to have the baby. I want to play catch and go camping with him when he's older. Finally, my longtime dream is coming.
George was being very happy, despite my shock.
Does your mother know about this?
I asked him, and he nodded his head.
Of course, I already told her. Mom is so happy to finally have a G. I'm getting ready to move in with Ra, and we're all getting prepared. As soon as we get divorced, we're going to move in together.
It seemed that they were already talking about the premise that I would agree to their divorce. At that moment, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone to visit. George says, "Oh, she's here, and the front door." Then he quickly returned to life. To my surprise, Rachel was right about George. Rachel clung onto his arm, laughing.
Sorry, Diana, for getting pregnant. George insisted on wanting to have bad that I decided to support him. I heard from George, that you can't get pregnant, right? Well then, that can't be helped. It's your fault for not being able pregnant, Diana.
Rachel was saying crazy things while her belly lovingly. Her belly looked very big.
Are you sure that the baby is really yours and George's?
When I said that, Rachel's nostrils flared, and she said, of course, loudly.
Yes, of course. This child is mine and Rachel's. Don't be sarcastic just because you get pregnant. Right, Rachel.
Rachel, who had just assured me that their child, seemed to be looking at a somewhat worried look in her eyes.
Yes, that's right. Of course it's my child and George's child. I can't believe you even asked that question.
See below for spelling and grammar mistakes. Well, I thought to myself that, if case, I'll accept the divorce. With that, I hired a lawyer and filed for alimony against both of them. Thanks to the lawyer, I was able to get $20,000 in alimony, and the divorce was finalized without any further disputes. I decided to move back to my parents' house because I didn't want to be near Get or his family. I am sure that the truth will come. A year had passed since then. I found a job soon after returning parents home, and I was living in my parents. I was at peace, remembering fewer of the horrible things that had happened. On that day, I went to work in the afternoon and came home around 7 p.m. When I got back, I saw a group of people hanging around in front of my house. Who could it be? I wondered if they had seen me, and as I approached, they came towards me.
Diana is a very beautiful name. It's not too common, but it's not too rare either. It has a nice ring to it. Where were you? I was waiting for you all this time.
It was George and his mother who were wandering around and acting suspiciously. They had come here on their own with prior notice, and they were acting fools.
What are you both doing here? We're not a married couple anymore, have no business with each other any.
Saying this, I tried to squeeze myself between the two of them and enter through but I was blocked by being grabbed.
What with your attitude, and we six all the way here, so I'm never you listen to what I have to say.
Then George started talking about what had happened after the divorce. There was a lot of complaining and unrelated talks, but to summarize, that he was deceived by Rachel. Rachel had been very supportive to Emily when she first moved in with doing house chores and taking care, but after the birth of their child, she left all the housework to Emily, who was physically exhausted and spent all day online shopping and only took care of the child when she felt like it. There were also concerns about the child. The child did not resemble George at unable to shake off her suspicions. She conducted a DNA test without telling him and found that the child was not his. When George had questioned her, Reek took the child and left the next day.
I understand the situation, but what does that have to do with me? A woman who can't even get pregnant child is an unfit wife, right?
You still care about that? Don't be stubborn. Let's start over. Mom's getting older, so she says it's time for me to take over the household chores. I quit my job and I'm doing a part-time job now. But finances are tight. We're divorced, but we used to be a team. Let's help each other out here, right?
Apparently, when we were getting discharged from the hospital, a letter was sent to George's company, which led to rumors about him going on, and he ended up leaving. In other words, these two are trying me. They're Adam and a housekeeper. Seriously, how low can they get? When I was dumbfounded and remained silent, Emily, who took the advantage of the situation, opened her mouth.
If you're back at your parents' house, you haven't remarried yet, have you? Well, I'm not surprised at all. The only one who would marry a girl like you is my kind son, George. Now hurry up and pack your bags and us.
From the way Emily spoke, it seemed that she was still treating me like an unfitting. I could only think that she was taking advantage of me to have such an arrogant attitude when they were the ones who had a position to ask for help. It's about time I put an end to this here.
See, so that's what happened. Come to think of it, you haven't actually apologized to me yet. If you get down on your knees and beg me, maybe I'll consider getting back together with you. What do you say?
Had they never thought that I would say something like this? George and Emily looked at each other in surprise. Then Emily shouted, "Why should I answer you?" But George stopped her. He probably decided it was best to apologize honestly this time. George pulled Emily down onto the ground and bowed his head. Seeing this, Emily also reluctantly knelt down.
I'm sorry. Please come back. Let's start over again.
I'm sorry for saying terrible things.
Please look up, both of you.
They both thought that I had agreed back together with George. George and Emily looked up with smiles on their faces.
Well then, let's get back together.
I crossed my arms deliberately and thought about it. And then this is what I said.
I've actually thought about it, but don't want to get back together with. It's too bad that you both got down knees and apologized to the person looked down on. You two should just continue to live in solitude. That's what you two deserve.
George and Emily opened their mouths and looked very surprised. Then their faces turned bright red from embarrassment and anger.
You? I can't believe you took advantage. Enough.
You're the one who's done enough. No matter what you say, I'm not interested in getting back together at all.
As I said this, Emily looked frightened, stepped back. Then somebody had come over. To my surprise, it was two police. Apparently, one of our neighbors saw harassed and called the police. George and Emily rushed to explain themselves, but in the end, they were taken away by the police. After that, they never came to my house again. Rumors have been circulating about Rachel's whereabouts, and since her divorce from Jer has not yet been finalized, their family finances are reportedly collapsing, made with George's credit card by Ray. So George and Emily had sold their house and were now living on George's pay from his job, which had terrible working conditions, and Emily's pay from her part-time job. As a matter of fact, I knew where Raw and her current situation. A former coworker of mine ran into Rachel in town and told me about it. Supposedly, Rachel was carrying her stroller with large luggage. Her face was gaunt, and she didn't have the same energy that she usually had. I don't care what happens to Rachel, as long as the child is healthy. And also, George had contacted me, or I had been told by my lawyer to block incoming calls just in case, so I followed his advice. At that time, I was checking my phone when he called me.
Oh, Diana, long time no talk. I actually wanted to tell you something, which is why I called you.
We have nothing to talk about anymore.
Actually, I went to the clinic that day, and I finally found out that the reason you weren't getting pregnant was there was something wrong with me. I'm so sorry for believing in what only he said to me instead of believing you, Diana. I was so stupid. I'm truly sorry.
Even if you understand now, it's too late. Don't contact me again, ever.
I said that and hung up on him. I hope that he will regret whatever he has done to me for the rest of his life. I felt as if everything was finally. After that, I started to date my company work. I told him I was divorced, but then he said he didn't mind at all. We continued to date, and recently, he proposed to me. Of course, I agreed to marry him, so I transferred my job to a faraway town with him. This would really cut the ties I had with George and Emily. And now, I'm pregnant with our second child. Just as my organ had told me, there was nothing wrong with me. My husband was very happy and vowed care of me and the child for the rest life. I want to take good care of our husband forever. My heart was filled with excitement at the thought of the happy life that awaited my child and my husband.